when I got an appointment to run a bank in Benin Republic, I was the first woman in that country. I had no clue what cultural shift that was making in the country. So I had to work, even the opposition came from even within, so that gives you a different kind of problem. So even if you went there with a ready business plan and everything that the Harvard School teaches you to do, you meet a situation that is really very, gender specific. So that realization, understanding of that environmental factor and how it relates either to your team dynamics, to your stakeholder acceptance, all of those things, now need to consider, as a woman. Then, of course, what are your personal circumstances? How do you balance that? Do you have those kind of structures that will support you, that are gender specific, that will ensure that at the point that you're starting that business, those issues are not interfering to the extent that did not allow you to go forward with that business. So I think just, to start with, these are some of the general issues you look at. And then, of course, the ones that are specific to your circumstances and specific to your environment. You're muted, Comfort.
All right, thank you so much, Ma. Wow. So that's very informative for us. I mean, you need to look at the gender-specific issues around the environment, around the business, and then the personal issues as well, how you're going to sustain that. All right. Okay, so I want to move the conversation further because I know a lot of people have questions here. All right, so when we talk about debt or equity, how would you say women should approach funding, especially with the type of environment we have? So I'll give a good example of why I'm asking this question. A lot of women come to us and say that most times it's difficult for them to get equity investors into their businesses. They cannot also access debts because of the structure of banking. Sometimes the collateral is not in their name. And so maybe the options they have is debt, is equity, but the equity itself is difficult for them to also access it. There's that bias. From your experience within this funding space, equity and debt, what would you say to the women, how they should approach funding for their businesses? We already know that they should have the business plan, they should look at the environment, the general factors that affect their businesses, the personal factors, but what should they be looking out for? How should they come prepared to the investment table or to the funding table if there's a discussion for funding for their businesses?
Yeah, thank you very much. I like your summarizing comment that we already know the standard issues. So I think that in our environment, and now I'm talking about mostly Nigeria, I want to limit this because most people on this audience, they are for in our country. I want to say that my experience shows that a lot of, can you mute? I think this crack is coming from your end. Yeah, thank you. I think most of the entrepreneurs, including women, we need to understand better the different kinds of funding that is required or that is appropriate for us at the different stages of our business. I think one error I see is that mismatch, people knocking on doors for funders that really don't find them attractive. So for example, if you are at the early stage of business, I mean, you look beyond the traditional funding space. Okay, typically something that's been working very well in our environment that perhaps we're taking for granted. This peer-to-peer lending, the women in the market, they use that and they successfully do it. Even career people who have ready income, they do that. Perhaps they don't use the money for business. But for me, I think that's the model that really we should begin to look at. Just like we began to look at the apprenticeship model, from the eastern side of our country. Peer-to-peer lending really is one model, that expands the family and friend source of funding. So we know that you can bootstrap, when you start, which is really where we fall into. That's the default area, that people come into. And so sometimes you are occasioned or you're opportune to plan ahead and prepare, have some capital stored. But really, that capital cannot really go far. So preparing yourself now to go into external funding, perhaps when you've gone beyond family and friends, you've gone beyond maybe your friendly cooperative society and all of that. These are informal sources that I think that early stage businesses, especially women, can really look at grants, and all of those intervention funds. They are there. They are tough sometimes to get in because maybe there's no transparency around the process, and maybe the information is really not very also transparent. Now, coming to the table to meet a funder, it depends really on the kind of funder you're talking to. I said to a group of women the other day, I said, look, to start with, every business should really have a bank account. Now, in that choice of it, so it's like you have the end in mind. Even before you start to open a bank account, begin to really look at, are these really the kind of investors the kind of bank that will support me when I need some kind of funding? Before you begin to start that funding, you can do some kind of preparation. And one very practical preparation I say to people is go into a bank or a lender of your target lender, where you've decided it could be a microfinance bank, it could be a conventional bank. Get a checklist of how they assess your credit, either from your sector, and begin to work towards that. You don't go in there at a time you need the money. I think that is something you can do that with 333 banks, So that helps you to begin to formalize, and all those issues all those items, all those requirements that are prerequisite to that approval, you begin to put those kind of things in place. So now when you have the quantitative, either documentation or a lot of that in place, how do you go prepared, for that discussion? A lot of homework is required. Connections are very important. People go into banks, they've been banking there for 5 years, and they really have no personal connection with, any officer in the bank. So that preparing, like the end in mind, begin to work your way. And if you find that this is an institution or a lender that really doesn't find you attractive, please switch. And because banks are actually going to be looking at your relationship, or even private equity firms are going to be looking at your relationships. Now, at the point you're also approaching, how do you prepare your documentation? What information have you put in that information, in that documentation? Does it meet, this is where the due diligence of the targeted lender or investor is important. Does it meet their requirement? So these are some of the things that I think, we begin to put in place before we approach. And of course, like I said to all women, go there really very prepared. You're running the business, you understand the business. Go there like you really want to succeed, in doing that business.
Thank you, Ma. That's a whole lot there. Usually the learning series is like a mini MBA. So at the end of the day, we get to do a lot of writing. If you're like me that can write, take notes. Okay, so I get it. I think one of the key things that jumps here to me is begin to walk your way towards with the end in mind. So as women run businesses or women-led businesses, you have to begin to, where am I going with this? What do I want to achieve at the end of the day? And then begin to walk towards that. And then you must have relationship with your bankers. And this is one of the most important things we say to anybody and everybody that runs a business. You need to have an understanding of your bankers. So you need to know what your bank require, what of you to do before you get a loan. So whether it's 1 million you're looking for, 10 million USD, you need to be aware of what their requirements are and prepare towards it. Thank you so much. So before I go to the next question, I want to also ask, so I've been in a session where we had about 20 businesses that were pitching to this set of investors. And the investor would say to me privately that they actually would prefer non-female-led businesses, and these are actually true events. They will say that, oh, there are gender-based private equity funds or finance companies that can see to the funding requirements of women. What would you say to women generally? How they should address this, or how should you present to this set of investors who say to us that, you know what, I don't want to be involved with women-led things. There are women financiers. I mean, they should focus on that. We need men who can work throughout the night. And this is the vibe we get at times. Because, for example, we have very strong women-led deals in the deal room. And we've been finding it difficult pushing it across to some set of investors because they are women. And these are not small businesses. These are pretty much established businesses. Some are startups that are doing very well and that can do very well. But we have that bias. How would you say that we speak to this, or if there's any woman here going through such?
Yeah, I think really this should be an open question, but just to chip in something before you leave it to the floor, because we have entrepreneurs here. Yeah. Really, one thing that gladdened my heart this year, the level of the conversation around breaking the bias, around gender equality. Yeah, I've never seen it so amplified. So I think it's so loud now that even the deaf will hear. And somehow we're also making a lot of progress. The data is not improving because, of course, demographics are changing. More women businesses are, starting up. So the gap is actually getting wider. But that doesn't mean that, there's not progress. Progress is being made. So we have a lot more capital going into female-owned funds. Maybe you should mute Comfort. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. So to address some of these bias, I'll come back to your question, but I just want to say, look at the landscape so we can all have some hope. I have some very powerful ladies here that do a lot of advocacy. I want to recognize Anino in particular, in Kechi. So there's a lot of capital actually because of this noise that we've been at. There's a lot of capital, and of course, the data also, validates the fact that women-led businesses, we contribute it so substantially. So it's not just a nice thing to do; it's a very strong business case. So there's a lot of funding, globally going into women-led funds, because we understand that these biases, they're really who we are. We can try to make people more aware and then get them to pause a little bit more and ask questions before, but really people default, the brain always defaults, to the shortest cut. So the bias will be there, but the rate at which women businesses are springing up, we really need some very, very serious interventions. So this first time women funds that are coming up, women-led fund managers, clearly is going to change that dynamics. Now, coming back to how we'll address, now that also comes to the knowledge of the landscape and my concern around people also not approaching the funders that are appropriate for them. So for you in the deal room, for example, you already know that you have within your investor community people who have, being gender biased really doesn't make us bad people, but this is our background, our culture, and some of these things, they're very, hardcore. They are soft issues, but they affect our decision-making process. So I think that we need to be more strategic where we're looking to get women funded and how we're getting women funded. We need to be more innovative around this until we get to a point where, there's some kind of, parity. So, for example, when you have those kind of women pitching, you begin to deliberately and intentionally look for women-owned businesses that have taken some of this.
Now she's saying we should do additional 10 children. So that was the plan.
No, it's the
Five
one what has
children.
It's three now.
We said on
It's
three.
it's
Hello.
three
it's three
now.
we are doing.
No,
Can you,
but we were saying
please?
if I even
Okay, can you mute, please? Thank you.
Yeah. So I think that for us, we need to be more intentional, in our fundraising journey. It makes it a lot more difficult, and then there needs to be a lot more learning and development within the investor community, especially around the conventional investment windows that we have, lending windows. I think these are some of the things that I would just say, at this point in time. Get more awareness. I mean, I think the awareness is increasing. Train a lot of these investors, especially the conventional banks, make their relationship, not just the lending relationship, even how they acquire customers, how they treat customers. Indeed, women are actually a very unique segment, and they should begin to look at that. We see banks trying to address that segment, but often they address it from a liability generation point of view, but not from an asset development generation point of view. So coming back to your question and comfort, I think we need to be more strategic because we understand that these biases are there. We need to encourage these women where we see them, give them that mentorship that they require, and hold them. And in that funding journey, even before they get that cash into the business, what other kind of support can we put around these women? And that's why all of these mentorship groups are there, all these women groups are there. Encourage them to join those communities. And they begin to see women who have also gone through this journey, and they can share from those examples. Thank you, Comfort. You can carry on.
Wow, thank you so much. Wow. Please, if you have any questions, some people are reaching out to me directly on WhatsApp to ask certain questions. Please, just drop your questions here. Just drop the questions here, please. Thank you. All right, so my next question would then be, generally, I think you've taken that, but I wanted to, what will be your lessons that you've learned in this journey of raising funds that the women can take home today? So many of them have raised funds. Some of them will be raising funds. What are the lessons learned and insights on loan and equity? I'm trying to, this is to try to say to them, which one is more preferable, debt or equity? Now, because you get to hear a lot of business owners, no, I don't want equity into my business. And for obvious reasons, they lose the business or they lose control or it's completely taken out from them or they're completely taken out of the business. And then you also have loans, which sometimes stifles the cash flow of the business when they start out. In so many cases, when they take the loan, the business goes down. So what would be your advice or learning experience working with businesses that have access loans and or equity, how it will affect their business or what they should do in making decisions concerning whether it's equity or debt in their business?
All right. Thank you very much, Comfort, for this question. I think it all starts even from the beginning, the early stage of the business. So my experience really, you find a lot of women in businesses, but the growth trajectory, this is on the average, when compared to their counterparts, male in the same segment, in the same sector, is often not the same. Usually the growth trajectory of the men is much higher. And so, and then also even in the areas around the formalization of the business, how the business is run, the efficiency of the business. So how the business has been run before the need for external capital comes in also determines how that capital, when injected into that business, will affect the business. Now, you talked about equity. Equity is often a cheaper way of raising capital. But at the same time, we have some cases today where we've seen equity injection that has actually led to almost erosion of the shareholding or the control of the female-led businesses. Perhaps it's the way we also negotiate, because equity negotiation is also totally different from a debt negotiation. The way women generally we negotiate, perhaps not as hardcore. This is, like I said, averages. Of course, we have some very hard-nosed negotiators, women as well. So in terms of equity, we know that equity does not have, is usually more long-term, is usually more patient. Again, that depends on the kind of equity. We have some very highly commercial-driven equity investors, and we have some, equity investors that are, developmental or patient, So really, all of that decision has to be taken into consideration before you finally make the choice, whether you want to even go, even equity, what type of equity investor are you looking at? You must do your due diligence. What's the history of this investor in the market? Not just history with companies. These biases are there, and usually they are driven by cultural backgrounds of people, whether male or female. We as women, we also have a biases. I just put a question to one of my colleagues a few weeks ago, talking about some biases that are even inherent in us. If you walked through a door, you were going into a room, and of course the door, you want to wait for someone to get in. If there were 3 guys there and you as a lady there, instinctively the woman will wait for the man to get in, for the guys to get in. For me, that's a bias that is coming from a cultural perspective. So some of these biases are even within us as entrepreneurs, as persons, even before we become entrepreneurs. So we must take all of those things into consideration before we decide whether we want to go equity or debt. Now, the loans, of course, where you take the loan from is also very important. You look at your cash flow, look at your business, the profitability. Can it now begin to absorb commercial loan? And that's why we talk about how you've run the business for a while. You must run the business in a way that even if you're running that business on family and friends, where there's not much pressure around returns, by the time you're getting to where you begin to take capital, you must ensure that that business can generate enough revenues to begin to pay back that loan. We have some businesses that have run for even as long as 15 years. But soon as there's an injection of commercial capital, the business can no longer survive. So that business has not really been tested. Perhaps that business, the financial records really were not so stringent to factor in some kind of debt injection into the business. So really, like I said, depends on the stage of the business, depending on how you've run your business, how formalized the business has been, how much the outlook of your business is. Not every revenue is profitable. So growth sometimes is not profitable. I've seen businesses that grew, and exponential growth actually led to the demise of those businesses. So the proportion of capital you take, the cost of that capital, who is behind that capital, all of these are considerations that must be put in on the table before we finally make that final decision.
Wow, thank you so much, Ma. I just got this line. This line got me. Not every revenue is profitable. I hope our ladies and women are listening, especially for those that have businesses that are already scaling or growing. Not every business is profitable. Thank you so much for that elaborate discussion on the equity and the debt side. All right, so because of time, I'll rush through the next few questions. Dealing with various loan structures and private equity structures. You've talked about it, but I don't know. So that also goes to the question of how would you advise business owners to prepare or be ready to access private equity and or venture capital? Now, why this question is so important is because a lot of the time I get to hear, oh, comforts. Why is it that the technology guys, these young people, are getting $10 million, $1 million USD, and we can't access those funds? So technically, I mean, not technically, literally, there are lots of investments into the technology space. And again, a new data that I've been studying for some time also indicates that most of these funds are going into um, businesses that are registered outside of Nigeria, one, and also most of the founders, whether male or female, are actually from the Ivy League schools or study outside of Nigeria. So how do we then say to women, especially with some of them that have very scalable businesses or startups or projects and or businesses that are already growing, and they really want to access so much, some of these funds. Some are in the technology space, but are not able to push through. There's also this thing, I don't know, that looks like there's an age barrier. So if you're not in your 20s or 30s, it's difficult getting funding from VCs and PEs outside of Nigeria. So how would you speak to the women here and subsequently that will listen to this conversation? How would they prepare to access private and venture capital funding across the globe?
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much. The examples that you've given, you can see something that is constant, the network that they belong to. Money is very discretionary, it's very selective. So money will chase what is attractive. So some of these, there's a formula to finding money, and if you get that formula, whether it's around your sector, around your environment, your geographic space, then. So some of these newer businesses, they found the, the importance of incubators and accelerators. Women businesses, maybe the younger ones now, we have this traditional approach, to how we run businesses. But today, the ecosystem has changed. And in that spectrum, there are different categories of, will I say, support entities. I would still call them, funders, investors, because even accelerators, even if they don't give you cash, they invest their time, they invest other things that you can quantify, as capital into your business. So with the end in mind, you can start really by looking at, the accelerator community and the incubators. Find one that will take you to your destination. So if you are a tech business, for example, look for a community or an accelerator or an incubator where you can have, that kind of relationship. And usually they open you to multiple and a myriad of opportunities. For example, we had this client we're working with in renewable energy. In as much as there's a lot of money coming to renewable energy, we just decided that, look, it's better to have this client face-to-face with a partner that has a developmental perspective. And so one of these, is measurable metrics to be how many businesses they have supported. So the commercial motivation is not that high. So they have more motivation for the impact that they make in those sectors. And so it's in their interest to see that more of these businesses get funded. This is what accelerators do. They are in the business to ensure that, because the more entities they succeed in blowing up, the more they have, they're able to access more funding and more capital, to increase their capacity in the acceleration that they do. So accelerators are very good. It's a very good route, to capital raising. Of course, your private investment on your advisory companies are also good, because these entities also support you. Even if you've been, borrowing or you've been raising capital, investors are new and they have their nuances. So when you have these parties supporting you and helping you review these conditions, helping you through the process, you are able to negotiate. I'm sorry about that. You're able to interact with these investors in a way that you come out, it's a real win-win for you, and it's not like you are the losing end of the table. So I would say for women founders, please join networks and be very selective about the networks you join. It doesn't matter how old the business is, you can support a woman within that network. But within that network, you have access to information, access to more to more resources that help you on your growth journey in your business.
Okay. Wow. Thank you. I got this very key. So networking and join an accelerator that could help, and then be very selective with who you're working with or partnering with. So finally, for today, before we open the floor for questions, so what are the key things? So one of the challenges for investing and accessing investors is the terms, the negotiations, the exits, the ownership structure, the governance issues around the companies. What would you say to women-led businesses, and how would this actually translate into the failures and also? Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I got the question. Yeah. Thank you. So, like we said, I mean, it's very important, for women in particular, the kind of capital, external capital that we inject, the cost of that capital, the nature of that capital, the character of that capital is very, very important. Often, like I say, the capital is the character of the investor, the owner of the money, and so that should be part of your due diligence even before you get to the point of signing a deal. Now, we must get advisors to assist us. Some people will say, no, the lawyer is so expensive, the legal advice is so expensive, I have a brother, I have a friend. No, please get advice and ensure that the terms and conditions on those offers, actually are things that will not drown you, but things that will not be so stringent, and at some point you begin to default. Because when you begin to have default in businesses, then it becomes also another issue for you. Your credit records becomes negotiation and relationship before, in, and after the investment is so important, because through strong relationships, you can actually get over very hard negotiations, because these are human beings in face of those entities. So get advice, relevant advice, technical advice. We also have the end in mind. Ensure that you've done very good due diligence before you put your final button. Be prepared for the rigor. I see a lot of women-owned businesses, that's my experience. They get to the point and they say, oh no, this thing, 20-page agreement, who is going to, I don't even, and then you just walk away. So be prepared for the rigor of negotiation, because once you put your pen to that document, it becomes an issue of integrity. We've seen that happen. Anything that is not documented, even if it's a tacit agreement, find a way to ensure that it's incorporated in the life of that relationship. But again, I will say relationship pre, in, and post that investment is so important. And then also getting to understand, exactly what the exit from that investment will begin, what your company will look like at the exit of that investment.
Wow. Hello? All right. Thank you, Ma. You are done, Ma? Or you were muted?
Yeah, I'm done, yeah. Oh, did I not sufficiently answer your question?
You have, wow.
Yeah.
So get advice, avoid default in business. That's a lot of taking for women businesses and any business at all. Then relationship in and after. Be prepared for the rigor. I think that is a major takeaway from this session. Every business owner must be ready for the rigor of work, and the rigor of reading through your agreements. You must sign agreements. You must understand what you're signing, the exits, the onboarding, the negotiations. It's important. I don't want to overflog this, but it's so important that we have to now in the DealRoom work towards providing in-house counsel for business owners, because we realize that they don't take that part very seriously. I can spend like say about 2 weeks negotiating with an investor, but spend 1 month to 2 months reviewing documents. I've had experiences where an investor wanted to invest about $1 billion into another business, and he asked me to review the investor memorandum that was sent to him. And it was just one line at the end of that bulky 300 and something pages that the thing, the caveats, see there right there, but it was just at the end. And then he called the other partners to say, hey, I found this in my presence. I found this. And they said, oh, we're sorry, that was an error. We're sending you an addendum. I was like, really? Like, seriously? So he would have lost close to 1 to 2 billion naira as we speak. That was some years back. So it's important we review all our negotiations, we understand them, we know the implications and the impact on the business. Thank you so much, Ma. This is very, very, I didn't expect less. Thank you so much for your time. So the floor is open now. If you want to ask questions, you can raise up your hands. We don't want to spend so much time here, but want to take questions. So I have some questions here already for you. Somebody is saying, can you please mention some networks that we can join? That is speaking to joining an accelerator like you had advised, or community of people working towards funding businesses. The second question is, how do we carry out due diligence on potential investors? I love this question. Yes. I love this question. I'll allow you to take those two questions together.
All right, thank you very much. I mean, thank God for social media. I don't know of any strong network that is not really on social media. So first of all, I think the first place to start, I always say, belong to an association of your sector, you know. So if you're into food and beverages, or if you're into food processing or whatever it is, start with, you know, the network or the association within your sector, within your geography. That really helps because you have people of like minds and you address sector and systemic issues together. You soon find out that the external issues are not really yours, and then collectively you can actually collaborate, you know, to solve them. Collaborate actually to get supplies. I was talking to some women the other day. I said one way of funding your business is to even begin to look at collaborations, not collaborating your business, but collaborating projects within your business. I always say the market women, these women have perfected the art of business in Africa. You know, they come together and then they make a single supply, a single purchase, bringing down the price substantially. And they sell on the same street, on the same lane. When the goods come, they share it, and there's no one competing with the other. Each one is staying on their lane, like they say in Nigeria. So start with an association, you know, of the sector where you work. You know, that is very important. And then, of course, begin to look at, depending on, like I said, always have the end in mind. Where am I going? What kind of source of capital am I looking at? How do I want my organization to begin to look at? Am I today in food processing, but I intend to do exports? You know, so this will determine what kind of associations that you're going into. So it's very difficult to just mention, you know, associations. There's so many of them, you know, and I'm sure some women on the platform can actually suggest a few. If you're an SME, also belong to the SME group in Nigeria. There's a lot of resources that you can get, you know, just being within an association or within a community. The community is so important. If you're looking to boost trade, so you stay within a community where you know, some of these networks have their strengths and have their areas of focus. Usually you don't have one size fits all. So look for a community that aligns with your objectives as a business person. And that's really so important. And then coming to your second question about how do you do due diligence on, very, very interesting question. So it's the same way, for example, you want to invest your money in a bank, or you have a deposit, you want to put it in a bank. You begin to ask questions. So I want to actually flip it around. Or you want to even be, you want to get married to someone. You begin to ask questions. That's due diligence. It's just a big word for saying find out, you know. So informal and formal on their website, you know, talking to people in the market. Who are their customers? What's their experience? Who have they invested in the past? Some of this you can get on their website. And you can find people who know them. Find somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows them, that can give you credible information about how these investors. So investors look very good, and you know they tell you they do good, but again they add more value than the money that they put in the business. So these are the things that. So due diligence is quantitative and qualitative. What is the source of their money? What are their ethos? Like I said, the character of the money is usually the character of the investor. So what are their ethos? Do they align with your own values? You know, so that you don't have issues with these investors in the middle of it, issues that can compromise the value system that you personally have or your organization has put up. So due diligence is, you don't have to, you know, hire someone to do it, but if you can afford it, you can. But I think if you're doing due diligence on multiple investors to make a choice, perhaps that may be an expensive venture. So you can do that personally by asking questions, go into their office, and also ask questions about them.
But you're lying down now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I can see some hands up. Comfort, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah, Ali Balogun hand is up. Nkechi Ali Balogun, you can take the floor now.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you for convening this very, very important event. And of course, Gwen, you nailed it spot on. I mean, I never expected less. I am not trying to make women look like we don't want to work hard. And I also am very happy that we keep drumming these things into the ears of women. But over time, I have come to discover that the greatest challenge that the woman has in business is at the proposal stage. Even when you give them the step-by-step guide. So I was wondering, is there any way we can set up, whether this will now be a business or something, somebody like Gwen, you know, set up something that will help women to actually write these proposals, guide them from conception to the time that they actually get this fund. Because you just said it yourself, that when they come to a document that's like 21 pages, they walk away. Have you stopped to ask yourself why they walk away? They walk away because they don't know what to do from there. Sometimes they even have the document, they don't know that's what we are asking them. Yes, women, we are this laid back, some of us. So is there any way we can go beyond what we are doing now? So practicalize it as, okay, let's see what you want to do. And let's guide you from beginning to the end and charge you. When you finally have the fund, maybe we're going to take so percentage for leading you there. Thank you. I don't know if it sounds... That's like breastfeeding the woman, yes. Yeah. Feeding the woman, yes. At this stage, we need to, because we have to be at par with the men. The men, they support themselves so much. Yeah. They do so much for themselves. I think we should go beyond advising women. Let us actually take it from them, do it for them, and get results.
Okay. I don't know if
yeah. Yeah, let me respond to that. Thank you very much, Nkechi. I'm sorry, I had to take my video off. I think my internet is a bit unstable. So you're very, very correct. I mean, I can just tell you, we have a client that we were working with. We had a session with her last week or 2 weeks ago. Very successful client, but this is a client that is at the nick of the next level of growth. And the client said to us, you know what, I am beaten. This is a client that already operates internationally. I am beaten. I need this capital, but I don't have the mental presence to put this business plan together.
Exactly.
Okay, so I know where that is coming from. Physiological issues. You know, there's so many things that women fight that are gender specific. I mean, we didn't even go into that. Whether you're in career, whether you are in women, these are real issues. You know, biological, barriers. These are barriers that are inherent with you just because you're a woman and because you come from, say, Africa. Okay, so we are trying hard to fight those barriers, but it comes at a price. And that's why you see women businesses, they're running a business. I was talking to a group of women. If you're doing a business for 15 years, the business is still at a stage where they are 2. There's something wrong with that business or that model. If you're comfortable with that business, you better check yourself if it's the best best use of your time. There's no way a man is doing business for 15 years, the business is doing well, the market is growing. The guy will not have moved from where he is to somewhere else. So that level of ambition. Now, what are those inhibitions? The inhibitions, some of them are, maybe domestic related. So coming back to your situation, that is really where to go. And that's why perhaps maybe after this session, we can, that exists. We have a lot of women. And the truth is, sometimes you write this business plan for some of these businesses, they can't even defend it. So we have people who do business plans. Okay, I mean, a lot of advisors, a lot of consultants, they make a lot of money writing business plans. But I mean, I was doing a session on grant proposals, and despite it wasn't a workshop, so perhaps we didn't have enough time, but people were like, so how do I write this grant proposal? So it really speaks to what you're saying. So I think maybe we can take this, Anino is here, you are here in Kichi. We can actually look at this. This is really an area of need. And really, it also gives the women the confidence to do a good pitch. So you have a woman who has a good pitch in front of her, but you can tell that she doesn't have the level of confidence that the document is saying. You see a good document, but it's not matching. The persona of that woman in front of the investor is not matching that document. So it's a whole lot of issues that I think that we gradually we're getting there.
Well, thank you so much. To speak to that, what we do in the DealRoom is actually a whole lot trying to address this particular challenge, not only for women, but for businesses generally. So the idea in the DealRoom is to prepare. So we also write business plans, we write pitch decks, we look at the structure of the business and the value proposition, and then train them to pitch as part of what we also do. So if you have any woman in your network, or you have network of women, going forward, we will then look at having specifically a package for women. My friends working with them is they walk away, or they say it's too expensive, or they don't really have the time. So maybe we'll take off that entire value chain of proposal writing to the point where they come to access funds in the DealRoom and package something for them, because we're already doing in the area of preparation, but we just include a lot more. We can work with a lot of women that are already in this space here, so that we can actually reach out to more women. Thank you so much, Nkechi. I think that is a spot on question. And thank you, Mrs. Gwen. Sorry, I will have to be calling you Mrs. Gwen. All right, so the question Anybody have any comments? We're almost ending this. Any questions? Thank you, Nkechi. Yeah, qualitative and quantitative assessment on potential investors. Yeah. So we already do that in the DealRoom as well. So we actually review, we train our investors. So in the DealRoom is a matching platform. What we mean by a matching platform, if you need to access investors, we check your investor readiness. So we test investor readiness in the DealRoom. We check, like I said, I mentioned earlier, the business plan, the pitch decks, the value proposition of the business, where they are. We review financials. We review the business proposals, or the startups. We have over 50 startups in the DealRoom and over 1,000 businesses already in the DealRoom. So we screen. And so the few of them that screen and are qualified are matched with investors. Now, we also screen our investors. So we understand the investors' investment criteria or investment philosophy. So we know that investor A would only fund technology or cross-tech in logistics and will not fund education. So we do not match a business in the education sector with this investor. So that's what we're bringing to the table within the funding space, preparing the entrepreneurs, startups, project owners, whether it's real estate, infrastructure. We look at it and then we can say, okay, this is the type of investor that match the funding requirements of this project, startup, or this business. And then we are also talking to investors. So if you're an investor here, or you know investors, especially the ones that can fund women-led businesses, then we also screen them. We know exactly how they want to invest and we match accordingly. That's what we do in the DealRoom. So I don't know if anybody else has any questions. Okay, Dr. Amino, thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Comfort, the DealRoom, for this excellent session. And Gwen, thank you so much for your insights. My name is Anino Emua, and I'm the founder of Africa Women CEOs Network, which is a community of women CEOs and founders across Africa. I think we have at least 500 of us. And my question goes back to Gwen's discussion in terms of finding legal advisors when you want to raise capital, for example, venture capital. Now, my question is this: for those companies that are looking at various options from VCs, at what stage do you move from a legal advisor to actually an investment advisor, or would you not recommend that?
Yeah, thank you very much, Anino, and thank you for, joining this session. So I think both have different roles. So usually your legal advisor is perhaps just for the purpose of looking at your legal documents. Or if you have the legal advisor on a retainership basis, maybe your company you put a legal process in place already, a system in place, you have a company secretary that is competent and understands VC lending, because all lawyers are good, but some have specialization in certain areas. So it's important, especially the value of that capital versus, the risk or the opportunity of a loss or or a profit. So if you have that a company secretary already in-house, you can look at it. But usually I would say, please look for someone who has experience around VCs, around PE, because of the clauses that are usually in those agreements. Bank lending agreements are usually very straightforward, and they're understood by general legal advisors. So that is one. Now, for your financial advisor, before you even approach a VC, I would say please have a financial advisor on your side, because they help you in that preparation. They help you usually even in the due diligence, because like Comfort was saying, they match you with an investor that will find you attractive because of what they are looking for. So it's like boy meet girl, you know, oh, this is the girl, you know, you already have an idea of what you want out of your, you know, your significant other. So it's the same thing with investors. They have an idea, they have usually a framework, their risk acceptance criteria, and the sectors, they have some of those nuances. And so the financial advisor, you know, makes that process of capital raising more efficient for you, and also cheaper and shorter by, you know, navigating you to where they think your requirements or your need will be best suited. So these are two different advisory roles, and some financial advisors have very large teams, and then they have a legal aspect. They have a legal person in-house that can review those reports. And, you know, I don't know if I answered your question.
Thank you very much, Gwen. That was fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
I
you did.
saw a question here on.
Yeah, I'm going to read that out right
Okay.
away. So I think we have more questions now. So the first question says, is there a database of grant providers?
Yeah, usually, like I said, Google is everything. You can actually get an online, you know. So if you go online, you'll see, unfortunately, this is one of the resources that we still find lacking. Some networks have them. In fact, the ANDE group, we're putting together a platform that will have resource materials for women in West Africa. So all grants that are available that are channeled towards, you know, this region will be in that database. So for now, I'm not careful to know if there's a single portal you can go, but we do have some organizations like Fund for NGOs, Fund for Companies, Grants for Companies. These are existing resources that you can, networks that you can join. I think you pay like $50 or $100. I can send that to Comfort. I don't have that link here. And then you can actually belong to some of these existing networks, and then they usually post when those, so they accumulate all of these grants. I think it's called funds. Let me just check that up now. I put that on the chat box. It's called funds. So you're talking about grants. It takes funds for NGOs and funds for companies, and usually they focus on grants. So on a weekly basis, they accumulate all grants across the globe, channel to different areas of the world, and then you can pick the one from Africa if you're working within Africa. So you have some entities that you can join that already have this facility. But in terms of networks, I don't know of any single one, but usually this information is online. You can actually just Google grants for so and so, and then you see a whole lot of things come up, and then you can just put that in your newsletter to receive those alerts when they do have those openings.
Yeah, all right. Thank you. I think that question, that's fine for now. I think there's one more question. Okay, yeah. So this question was dropped on the DealRoom. I think we had to post it here. So what advice do you have for a family company where the husband is the driver and visionary, but the wife is the largest shareholder? Can the wife stand in front? Okay, can the wife still lead the pursuit to access capital? They are in the food and beverage sector.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get the question.
Yeah. So this is a trick question, I'll say. And it's one of the observations we have. So, for example, this particular participant, I don't know if there was a deliberate decision that even though the woman is the founder, the man should run the business. So if that's a deliberate decision, I mean, that's perfect. So it's just using the strengths of each partner, where it's best suited. So if the man is a go-getter, is a driving force, he has access, how our men are, then that's fine. But it really doesn't matter. Within the organization, you can decide who is going to do the capital raising process. If you feel that you have that skill, it's not about whether you have the largest shareholding. I think it's always best to put your best foot forward. Who within the organization is best at that kind of interaction? And that's the person who has the information you put forward to talk to investors. Because it's just like trying to get a relationship in the bank. The customer sees the banker first before he talks about the institution. So whoever is speaking on your behalf is who the investor sees first before they begin to look at your document. So really, it's circumstance specific. I will say that let that role be for the person who is best suited to run that role.
All right, thank you so much. By the way, while you were answering this question, something was going in my mind. So normally in recent times, when we see some funding institutions will require that the woman has the largest or the highest shareholding for her to be able to access funds, especially for social impact funds. What would you say to women generally in this case? Especially for some of them, there are one or two funds we try to access on behalf of the clients, and she's required to have 61% shareholding to access the funds. And we couldn't proceed because she didn't have that 61. And when she went back to her husband, who had 60 and she had 40, he wasn't ready to reduce his own holding to make her the majority shareholder. I mean, this is going, yeah.
Yeah, but these are real issues. And I said to you, I would rather have this session more practical than, so this is a real issue and it's a real barrier. I don't know the personal circumstances in this situation, but I would have assumed that if both parties understand that they need that capital, I wouldn't see any reason why that seeding shouldn't have happened, with a condition perhaps that the shares will return back to him. I mean, there are several ways, all of this is really about discussions, and having a good legal person around you. So if you still have that client, you can go back to her and say, look, the husband can actually, they can have an agreement that upon exit of that investment, the shares can actually go back to him if he wants. Except, of course, he doesn't think that they need the money. But if they do need the money, I don't really see why he wouldn't have done that. We've seen situations where, of course, if you are trying to access women-owned funds, especially in sectors that there's a lot of intervention to increase the quality of women in that sector, for example, renewable energy, any of the sectors that already have very low representation of women, it's an opportunity for businesses and to put forward, a woman shareholder. We had one tech company, and we had to tell them to represent their pitch deck because they already had a 50-50, but it wasn't presented in that way. So you present it in such a way that this whole presentation is all about as well, and the preparation, for pitching and for investor approaching. So I think all of this depends on really the owners, what they consider more important to them. If the capital raising is very important, they can't agree on how post that, situation, they can go back to status quo in the shareholding structure.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I don't know if anybody has any questions. We want to call it a day. We'll draw the curtains here. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Mrs. Gwen Abiola Oloke, for your time. It's been an inspiring session, by the way, for me, to have women come together like this. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Anino, for joining us. Thank you, Mrs. Buki George, she's here, and Kechi Alibalogun, Titilayo Lajumoke, Joanna Eze, Kayode Deborah, Amina Aliu, Cordelia, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. So you can reach us in the deal room. Please, if you know women who have challenges raising funds for their businesses or for the existing businesses and any business at all, they can reach out to us in the deal room. Our website is on the chat box, www.dealroomng.com. And then you can reach out to us and we'll help you through all of the entire funding journey, from starting to write the proposal to when the funds are disbursed, and then the interactions with investors. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. It's a happy...
Can I, sorry, please, I'd like to give a shout out to Mrs. Buki George. Yes, and I want to shout out to her specifically because is she still on the call?
I think so.
I am here.
Oh yeah. We want to celebrate you.
Yeah.
This is a
Gwen.
this is a very resilient woman, and I think you really should tell your story because you've been at every phase of a business owner, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you're still standing tall. Resilience. When we talk about resilience, this is a woman who has been in a lion's den, and she's still standing tall. She's a woman who has revolutionized the pharmaceutical retail industry. I never met Mrs. Boki George before, but she had a vision to change. We knew pharmaceutical industries. I was a banker in Kechi, you remember. We just knew pharmacies as 1, 2, 3 shops, you know. They would never be able to access finance because all they had was Panadol and antibiotics on their shelves. No assets to cover, you know, their lending. But this is a woman that had a vision to change that concept. And soon as, you know, it happened, we saw a lot of capital going into that sector. So I want to thank you, Madam, for coming here. She's also a story of how you take capital, good capital and bad capital into your business. You know,
Exactly.
So, yeah, you know, that's why I said due diligence on your investor. So I'd like you to share your story somehow, somewhere, you know, so that women can learn. And then, you know, because sometimes nothing beats evidence, you know. Some people are going through what you've gone through and they want to see how you navigate it. So thank you very much. I also see my colleagues here, Okemute, Amina, you know, thank you for your support. Nkechi, I've known for years. Thank you for always being there. And you know, I've also known for years. When you call women supporting women. Thank you all for joining the session and all of us supporting Comfort.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Have a lovely afternoon. Or do we still have questions? Or yeah, growing is part of the story. I know. All right. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a blessed afternoon. Wish you well in all your business endeavors. Bye from all of us. You can actually unmute anyway. Tolu, please, can you unmute everyone?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for Buki George for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to Comfort, to Gwen DealRoom, and to Buki George, one of our country's foremost entrepreneurs, who's paving the way for millions of entrepreneurs, not just women. And this has truly been an excellent session. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for a great session. Bye-bye. Thanks, Dr. Anino. I think I got the link from your post or something, or is it? I'm not sure, but thanks, everyone, and thank you for a great session.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name is Nkechi. Buki George invited me, and I'm so happy that I joined. I learned a lot. So thank you, Buki. Thank you, Comfort. Thank you, Dr. Gwen. And everybody who's contributed. Thank you for your knowledge and for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you. So bye, everyone.
Comfort, thank you very much. Oh,
Thank
sorry.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. We're grateful. Thank you, ma'am.